Today we're going to be taking a look at the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the Samsung S25 Ultra. Now we all know that these are both great devices to own, but which one's actually better for you? I'll let you be the judge. The S25 Ultra features a 6.9-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 3120 by 1440p and has a 120Hz refresh rate. And then when we take a look over at the iPhone, it's rocking a similar 6.9-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display with a resolution of 2868 by 1320p. And of course, it also has a 120Hz refresh rate. Now, even though both phones have a similar refresh rate, they both do have significant differences on their screens. For example, the brightness level on the S25 Ultra peaks out at 2600 nits, while the iPhone 16 Pro Max peaks out at 2000 nits. Also, when compared side by side, the anti-glare screen on the S25 Ultra really stands out. On the inside, the S25 Ultra is rocking the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip and 12 GB of RAM, while the iPhone 16 Pro Max comes equipped with an A18 Pro chip and 8 GB of RAM. And similar to last year, the S25 Ultra has a titanium frame, except for this time it has a rounded edge corner design, which is much more comfortable in your hand. And of course, comparing it to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, you also have a titanium frame, which nearly looks identical to last year's design. It worked great last year, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Looking from the side, both phones are equally as thin and very similar in weight as well. Now, I'll admit that both phones have a very similar and solid build quality, but the cameras, on the other hand, when we take a look at those, you're gonna see that they really start to separate themselves. So the S25 Ultra has a quad camera setup with a 50 megapixel ultra wide, a 200 megapixel wide, and a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto and 50 megapixel 5x telephoto. In comparison to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which has a tri-camera cluster, which features a 48 megapixel main sensor, a 12 megapixel 5x telephoto, and a 48 megapixel ultra wide. And of course, we can't forget about those front-facing cameras, which both are very similar in that they have a 12 megapixel sensor. And right now, I'm just gonna pop up some pictures and videos I've been taking with these cameras lately. That way you guys can kind of decide which style and which phone cameras you like the best. And if you're still having trouble deciding which phone you like better, I'm about to run some tests to find out which phone's more powerful. The first test I'm going to run is going to help us figure out which phone has better CPU performance. To measure this, I'm going to be using Geekbench 6. This way, we'll be able to see not only which phone finishes the tasks first, but at the end, it's also going to give us a score so we can evaluate the individual performance. And as you can see, the iPhone 16 Pro Max finishes a few seconds before and also had a higher single core score of 3507 compared to 3163 from the S25 Ultra. However, the S25 Ultra absolutely destroys the iPhone in multi-core with a 9975 versus the iPhone 16 Pro Max 8722. And as my friend Miles Above Tech brought to everyone's attention recently, this actually means that the S25 Ultra scores higher than the performance of an M2 MacBook. But that's just CPU scores, and why not test the GPU as well? And to do so, I'm going to use 3D Mark. Now, this software is going to simulate a cross-platform benchmark, which allows us to compare each phone's graphic performance with the resolution of 3840 by 2160. So basically, we're going to stress these phones out and see if they can handle some PlayStation and Xbox level graphics. And again, in this test, you're going to see the iPhone finishes slightly ahead of the S25 Ultra. However, what's immediately clear to me is not only the fact that these games look way better on the S25 Ultra screen, but they also performed much higher than the iPhone as well, with the overall score being over 900 points better on the S25 Ultra. Not to mention the fact that it also averaged significantly higher frames as well. This next section is the second most important topic we're going to talk about in the entire video, and that is actually the batteries inside of each phone. But before we get into that, I actually want to show you my favorite case for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So this right here is the ESR hybrid case with stash stand, and it's got some pretty amazing features. First off, it has an ultra clear design, which I love because it lets my iPhone look great, but also gives rock solid protection. It features a HaloLock magnetic case design, which is designed specifically to work with MagSafe devices as well. And I really love that it has this metallic camera lens protection that also doubles as a stowaway kickstand. But easily my favorite feature is that this case also features a functional protection for the capture button, so that it keeps the glass safe, but also allows me to utilize it with full functionality as well. And if you guys want to check out this case for yourselves, I'll leave an affiliate link in the description below. And now let's get back to those batteries. The S25 Ultra is rocking a 5000 milliamp hour battery, which is identical to last year's S24 Ultra. The battery life, however, has greatly improved thanks to more efficient processing. So even though the battery hasn't gone up in size, the actual battery life has increased. And with all that in mind, Samsung says we should be able to get about 31 hours of video playback, which is actually pretty great. And as for the iPhone 16 Pro Max, we get a 4,685 milliamp hour battery, which gives us slightly less usable battery life for our phone in comparison to the S25 Ultra. However, what I found so interesting is that Apple claims that this should give us a range of 29 to 33 hours of video playback. And even though it has technically a smaller battery capacity, it has a higher playback than the S25 Ultra. So we still have two more features to talk about, and I'm saving the best one for last, so make sure you keep watching until the very end. For this section, we're going to focus on unique hardware features. The two biggest hardware features for these phones are going to be, of course, the S Pen on the S25 Ultra and the new capture button on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. The pen is not new, but it definitely comes in handy for note-taking or quick doodles. I found this particularly useful when I used to work in the contracting field, and I was able to make lists to refer back to for my Home Depot trip. The new iPhone capture button was super exciting to me at first because it just seemed to make sense. However, after using it for a few months, it's gotten to the point where I only really use the thing to open up my camera app, and other than that, it just kind of gets in the way. And that's because when my palm accidentally touches the capacitive slider, it completely takes the camera zoom out of whack. Now, one feature on the S25 Ultra that I wish my iPhone had is wireless power sharing. And when you turn it on, it literally turns your Samsung phone into a wireless charging pad. But on the other hand, the iPhone has the coolest feature of any smartphone, which is called Name Drop, and it essentially lets you bump two iPhones together to quickly and effortlessly share contacts or files. And finally, we have made it to the most important feature when deciding on whether to buy the iPhone 16 Pro Max or the Samsung S25 Ultra. And that, of course, is AI and unique software features. Starting off with voice assistants, the S25 Ultra has Bixby and also uses Google Gemini. On the other hand, iPhone 16 Pro Max has Siri and also uses ChatGPT. In my opinion, these are both great options for streamlining productivity and getting quick and accurate answers throughout daily activities. However, if you find yourself spending significant amounts of time in conversation going back and forth with your voice assistant, then the iPhone will slightly edge out the S25 Ultra in this category because ChatGPT just does a better job remembering previous queries and conversations. One big one I hear all the time is that iPhone is better because it has AirDrop and Samsung phones don't. But in my opinion, this is not a good argument at all because Samsung phones have QuickShare, which is essentially the same exact thing. In terms of AI features, there's none bigger than photo editing, and in this category, there really is no competition for me. And that's because Samsung offered a lot of these features first, and to this day just simply does a better and more accurate job than the iPhone. For example, while both phones can remove objects like a random stranger who was photobombing your picture, the S25 Ultra is much more accurate in generating imagery behind the object it erases, and can even take it a step further by moving or resizing those objects instead of just erasing them. And even though I find the iPhone camera audio to be better than the S25 Ultras, Samsung evens the playing field this year by adding the brand new feature called Audio Eraser, which literally lets you delete unwanted background noise like wind or even crowd noise. The S25 Ultra also has a feature called Circle to Search, which allows you to quickly identify anything on your screen without even having to change apps. Not to worry though, because Apple does have their own version of this, and it's called Visual Lookup. But the biggest feature and possibly most important deciding factor for me personally is the fact that the iPhone camera looks night and day better than the S25 Ultra when using third-party apps like Instagram. And until Samsung fixes that one feature alone, it will detour lots of potential customers directly back into the Apple ecosystem. And at the end of the day, both of these phones are amazing, and I personally carry both daily.